Hello, I am John Cook, co-founder at GeekWire, and on behalf of GeekWire Studios, I am really excited to be here with two of the original co-founders of Madrona Venture Group. I'm joined to my right here with Jerry Grinstein and Paul Goodrich. Thanks for joining us here today.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, you have seen a lot over 30 years at Madrona, and I would just like to hear your thoughts on some of the highlights of creating this venture capital firm here in Seattle.
Well, I would have to say that certainly one of the highlights was when we formed our first outside fund with outside investors, because for the first 5 years, we were investing our own money, mostly Jerry's.
It was a very slim operation.
And in 1999, we went out and raised a $250 million fund. And at that point, I remember sitting in the conference room down in Phoenix. We came into the room. Tom Alberg and Greg Gottesman and I and Jerry were there, and we looked at each other. We said, yeah, we closed the fund. Let's celebrate with some champagne. And then we looked at each other. Oh, what the hell are we going to do? Wasn't quite that bad.
Jerry, how about you? Any highlights over the past 30 years?
Well, without going back to 30 years, let's start in the very beginning. Bill had been living in Houston, Texas, working for Browning Ferris. I was in Fort Worth, Texas, working for Burlington Northern Railroad. Paul was a lawyer here, and Tom Alberg was working for McCaw. And all of a sudden, all four of us decided that because we admired and respected each other, that we should get together and do something undefined, but we wanted to do something together and decided that let's just start something, and that's how it was the very beginning.
And actually, outside circumstances sort of dictated the direction that we went. Tom had been a regular investor as an angel, even was a practicing lawyer as a managing director at Perkins. I had some venture experience, but sort of the internet overtook us. So Tom had invested in Amazon, and the internet took off, and so all of a sudden, all these entrepreneurs were landing up outside our office, wanting to meet with the people who had invested in Amazon. So that became our vision, and that's what we did. We started out originally as sort of professional angels, investing our own money at the time.
And Paul, outside of you, the rest of the partners didn't have much venture capital experience. So why do you think that group of people was able to have so much success at Madrona?
I think a lot of it had to do with the reputations of the three of the four founders.
Who were you?
I'll let you guess.
Let's leave that up.
No, Bill, was head of the EPA, 2 times head of the EPA, head of a big waste hauling company. Jerry, modestly the CEO of Western Airlines, acquired by Delta, on the board of Delta, later the CEO of Delta, head of the CEO of Burlington Northern Railroad. And Tom, who had gone from Perkins to McCaw Cellular, was sort of the force behind the acquisition by AT&T Wireless, which acquired McCaw Cellular, and that became AT&T's business, their mobile business. So with those 3 heavy hitters and one guy who knew something about venture, we were well positioned to take advantage of the opportunity that presented to us.
Thank God for Paul. Because if Paul hadn't been there in his venture background, the rest of us would be hanging on to life rafts.
I'll pay you afterwards, Jay.
Okay.
So Madrona has had a massive impact in the Pacific Northwest tech economy. When you look at Madrona's history and that impact, what stands out to you?
Well, I think the fact that there are 19,000 employees, not employed by Madrona, but employed by our portfolio companies, over $6 billion managed here through Madrona, most of which has gone into the Pacific Northwest ecosystem, entrepreneur system. 110 active portfolio companies. Those are all things that I never would have visualized in the beginning.
A big part of it, I think, was the fact that Tom Allberg and Bill Ruckelshaus and Paul were highly respected, and so their word was what carried. That you talk to an investor, and they not only hear the story, they look at you and evaluate you. And the story that they were telling, and the way they presented themselves, and the track record that they had in business was enough to carry it. And that, I think, was the biggest part of it, because they were joining us on faith. We had a story to tell, but you needed to have the respect of the people that were actually telling the story. And
So it's really about that trust that you build with the founders and the entrepreneurs. Paul, any advice that you have for building that trust in the investor-entrepreneur relationship?
Yeah, I would say that the key thing is honesty, transparency, and honesty between the parties, so that when you get a sense that you're being told the truth from an entrepreneur and you're sharing with them sort of the feedback that you're getting, that I think is the basis for trust. And if you don't have that from the beginning, then you're on a slippery slope.
So now here we are 30 years into Madrona's journey. Could you just share a few tidbits of what you think the next 30 years might look like for Madrona?
So I think that, it's a different game today than it was then. Some things are the same. For example, our focus continues to be early stage tech companies headquartered in the Pacific Northwest. That's never changed, but we have expanded. And so we now have our fourth acceleration fund, which is investing in later stage, not late stage, but a little bit later than a very early stage. We also have the intersection of innovation now, which is sort of a crossover between the heavy data focused and biology. So that's another change. But across those changes, we've got a very deep team. And now most recently in the Valley with Karan joining us. It's a small team down there, but they're very plugged in. That I see continuing for Madrona in the future. And with a team as deep as we have and the younger people coming up, when I joined Madrona, I was the youngest person there. Then I got to a point where some of the people at Madrona could have been my kids, and now some of the people at Madrona could be my grandkids. So I think that process is going to continue building up the younger group.
Yeah, speaking of that younger group, and Jerry, maybe this is a question for you, just on looking at the past 30 years, what advice would you give to that next generation of Madrona partners that are coming up through the ranks?
Well, let me start with just one thing. Whether it was luck or skill or insight or something, the staff that Madrona attracted, the chief financial officer, the head of the administrative staff, the head of the communications and security staff, they're all excellent. There was a slide that was put up and listed them, and that's really one of the critical keys to what made Madrona work so well. We're on time with everything. It's all accurate. It's all carefully screened, and so there's an element of trust and respect. And I would say that was really one of the biggest factors. Right from the very beginning, we had a first-rate staff, and they carried ignoramuses like me.
Well, Paul Goodrich, Jerry Grinstein, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.